Hello, horror fam, best friends, and ghoulish knights, and welcome to the 8th. I was about to say 7th, but no, 8th episode of Murders with Mertens. This is a podcast about horror, the psychologically terrifying, the supernatural, sci-fi horror, body horror, the horror-adjacent, thrillers, scary films in general. Each episode, I intend to sit down with a guest and discuss one of their favorite scary films so we can gush about everything that makes it just so damned cool. I really have to give a massive shout out to everybody who has followed along for this couple of months. It's been really fantastic. The wars that have sprung up on Twitter over views have been incredibly entertaining, and I know that's just to help get me a few extra views there, but it is still much appreciated. And yeah, Mark and Andy, and Yaz, and Madeline, and Mario. You know who you are, and you know what you've done. So, you've heard a laugh there. I don't want to waste any more time in introducing my guest for this evening, Joe Medforth from Twitch.tv's Joe Medforce. Joe, how the hell are you?
I am fantastic, especially since when I saw that Murders with Mertens was a thing, I was like, I know a best friend who loves horror, and therefore that means I get to gush about horror, which is something that I don't get to do nearly often enough. Thank you so much for having me on.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That's something that's, I think, common in a lot of horror fans' lives. In that, you know, we're that outlier that absolutely loves the genre, and all of our family members and most of our friends are like, yeah, I don't like scary movies. They think they don't like scary movies, but then you somehow convince your folks to watch The Strangers. So, you know,
That's it. Yeah, it's all about doing whatever you can to find that person or people who you can share it with. My own flatmate who I live with, we seriously bonded over horror films. I think we're going to discuss one of them in detail today. But it's been a trip, and knowing at least that you have someone to, you know, whether it's a partner, a friend, or family, to be like, oh my god, yeah, we can all like turn out the lights and throw on something, and you know, just have a scary good time.
Yeah, absolutely. And to a certain degree, horror can be very cathartic as well. You know, we like to root for the villain quite often in these films. They almost achieve kind of hero status in a lot of these stories, especially the characters from a lot of franchises. So
and even outside of the catharsis of the plot of you know, seeing a journey for a villain or a hero, a survivor, you know, final girl, whoever it may be, that catharsis is, I first felt that not through film, actually, interestingly enough, but through a piece of theater called The Woman in Black, which is it's a book. They created a stage show from it that is, I think, still showing in London, or has been for many, many years. It's great. You have to see it on stage if you ever get a chance. And then they did make the Daniel Radcliffe film, which was fine. I mean, it was okay. It was okay. Yeah. But the stage, the theater production is incredible, because you are literally seeing this horror before your eyes. You know, like, you know, a rocking chair has never been scarier in my mind. But I was watching this with, like, when I was a teenager in high school, and I was like shocked and scared by like jump scares, or the fact that the titular woman in black, like, out of nowhere walks through the aisle, and you're just like, you just get you just get that, but she's just walking, you just get fucking chills. But when there would be like a shock moment of some kind, a jump scare almost, you know, I was like, and then I just started to laugh. It's like they're so that enjoyment of that relief is the same.
Yes.
Yeah. It is the same as when you laugh. I think that's why horror and comedy work so well together. But
absolutely.
And actually, there's even some moments in our topic today where that goes in. And because you won't get me to stop talking once I start, that's where it started for me. Horror comedy in terms of cinema. It was Spider-Man and Spider-Man 2. And you're like, wait, why is that horror? Of course, if you know anything about your motion pictures, you know that Sam goddamn Raimi, The man himself directed those, and Spider-Man 3 as well, but we don't just talk about that.
Yeah.
Or I will, just another time. I think it's great in its own way. It's also terrible. But I not only have a signed copy of Spider-Man 2, but I got this signed when the film Drag Me to Hell was coming out. And I've got a poster floating around somewhere that I am going to get framed and like have put up either in my background or in our living room at this point, which is horror themed. We've got a plastic skeleton in there. It's great. Freaking Evil Dead 2. Drag Me to Hell, Evil Dead 2. Like, it says
They're very similar.
for those
yes.
it says Sam Raimi wrote on it, "Beware the Evil Dead." Like, it's once that light was turned on, and the first Drag Me to Hell was the first horror film I properly saw on a big screen. It's an absolute roller coaster, such a great time. And then but watching a more that is horror comedy. But then watching the Evil Dead remake, the 2013 film, like that was when it was like that, but that scared me off horror for a long time. Not in a bad way, not like
no, but it is straight up horror. And
oh yeah, and it's a very highly underrated in my mind. I think Fede Alvarez did such an incredible job with it.
I think
considering
he's
the heritage, right?
Yes, and I think he did an amazing job with it. It is a fucking bonkers horror film that does not let up once it gets started, and
it does just enough in terms of establishing its setup and these new characters, archetypes though they are, but actually, and it makes sense in terms of the context of the plot. And then it just goes places, and it goes, and like you say, yeah, it's relentless in the best way. It's so freaking great.
Yep, it's one of the best horror reboots that we've gotten in quite some time.
I would be hard pressed to like name one better, but also I've also often steered clear of a lot of the reboots because I'm like, if it's got if it's Platinum Dunes, I don't want to go near it. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah. I mean, there's little bits to find to love in some of those, but on the whole, they're.
It's always a difficult thing to do. So the fact that those even if they got some things to love about them, it's good.
Yeah, and I don't like to hate on remakes necessarily, especially in the horror genre. I think there's a lot of merit in a lot of them, but when it is a clear cash grab or cash in, especially if it's a Western remake of a foreign film, it's like, okay, they made this 5 years ago. And, case in point, Train to Busan, which is kind of a perfect zombie film. And it's being remade. I don't even remember the title, but it's got its American remake that's at some stage of production already.
You want to hope that it will be at least good, but a lot of the time you can't hold a candle to the originals, and there's a reason for it. So
yep, absolutely. Well, I don't want to hold up our topic too much longer, but
I think it's a good because I think people get it. Like, they're like, hey, this guy's funny looking. He laughed at some movies, and then he discovered that when Sam Raimi put a horror scene inside of Spider-Man 2, there was a reason for it, and it's awesome. Yes. And
best scene of the film. Yes.
One of like, because I could talk about Spider-Man forever. But yeah, and actually I would say that for anyone who is just looking to get started in terms of horror, like, you don't have to throw yourself in at the deep end. You don't have to like go in on The Shining or any of these like films that can seem unassailable. Watch Drag Me to Hell or like Evil Dead 2 specifically, because it's basically the example I should say of an Evil Dead film, and the or Cabin in the Woods, something like that. You know what I mean? Like, there's no reason not.
And
to.
then come back into it after you've watched a lot of other horror films just to appreciate it that much more. Yes.
Exactly. Yeah. Once you've seen Hellraiser, you definitely want to go back and watch Cabin in the Woods. Like,
Yes, or The Strangers, or any number of films. It all kind of clicks, right?
yeah,
Um,
so much so. Yeah.
because I know you're going to have much to say once we intro this film. I
Oh.
just want to come right out and say that tonight's film is the 2018 psychological horror film Hereditary, written and directed by Ari Aster.
Hmm.
Holy fuck! As an Ari Aster
That's it. That's
super fan, please tell me your experience with this film.
I Hereditary changed the way I look at film. As a huge film fan, someone who went to study film at university, someone who, um, was watching, I found out about Sam Raimi through DVD extras and all this sort of stuff, and I was just getting back into like, oh my god, I want to start seeing horror films in the cinema. Like, it was A Quiet Place that same year, just earlier that year, that kind of like ticked the box again. I was like, oh shit, yeah, this
My
is really fun.
favorite theater experience ever, actually, A Quiet Place.
Oh my god, yeah. I
Oh,
wish I'd seen it in like a packed theater, and the same for Hereditary, to be honest. But it at the end of the day, it doesn't matter because great film is great film is great film. That yeah, and but on the other end of the spectrum, before I watched A Quiet Place, there was a trailer for this film called Hereditary, and
that trailer, man.
that trailer is something else because you think you have an idea of what this film was going to be, but it felt different. It even felt different within that. It stood out to me in a way that I was like, I've got to see that, no matter what else. Like, I'm sorry, Ma. I'm gonna put you to the side. I'm not necessarily interested in that one. I want to watch Hereditary. I want to go see this, and I did, and the theater was empty, and it was a few months later. I hadn't rewatched the trailer or seen it. I hadn't been seeing any of the horror films, so I hadn't whatever Marvel film was out that year. I wasn't necessarily going to see it. Hereditary wasn't going to be playing as a trailer before that. But I was on the edge of I was intrigued from the start, on the edge of my seat for so much of it, and about 40 minutes into the film, and we'll get into it, something happens. And I would say, actually, this is my current plea, that if you're listening to this, watching this, and you're like, Hereditary, you do not know anything about it, please just stop, pause this, watch it, rent it, buy it on Blu-ray, and just experience it for yourself. Please do that, because if I could have gone in without a trailer, but I forgot a lot of what was about it. Like, it is one of those films where I think that you will be, it's gonna take your head off. Let's say that much. It's gonna blow your hair back, certainly. If nothing else. And then I was like, Ari Aster, who is this? And it's his directorial debut, written and directed by Ari Aster from New York City. And there is so much to dive into. Basically, it is top. I think, to be honest, it's top 3 of it's shot into my favorite films of all time, and every time I have rewatched it since, it has just gotten better. And I can't sing higher praises for a film than Hereditary. Like, I think, like, in 2028, I want to get a group of people together, book out a theater, and just be like, this film was 10 years old, and everyone should fucking see it, because it's a masterpiece.
It's definitely one of those where every time you see it, it is entirely possible to catch something that you did not see in a previous viewing. And just even in my notes for today, I definitely have at least 1 or 2 things that I never noticed before. My experience, just the trailer was super interesting that year, but I didn't get an opportunity to go and see it. And every year for Black Friday, I just make a point of, because I typically work the day, On my way
Okay.
home, I will stop at like a Target or a Best Buy or some store like that. And
Mhm.
it's like, okay, let's find a good, two, three, four films that are super cheap that,
Let's dig into those Blu-ray discounts. You got to be done.
yes,
Black Fridays and everything.
absolutely. Absolutely. Because, at those types of prices that they tend to take a lot of those down, it's worth taking a gamble on things that you haven't seen before, that you also may have an inclination like, I'm going to want to see this again. So I purchased this film and two others that I can't even remember at this point because it has definitely been overshadowed by this film. And when I finally got around to putting this film in, I slow played this over the course of an afternoon because I had to keep pausing it over and over because I found it so fucking unsettling to the point
That
where
was that
I
was me in the
mean,
theater. I was like, I. There's
you
this
were
part of me
crawling
that
out of your skin,
actually,
weren't you? Yeah.
there's a part of me that wants to actually leave, but I can't. Like, I was frozen with this. It's not even fear. It is a sense of dread and unease, which
Mm-hmm.
you other experiences in my life, let alone motion pictures, have given me. It's
Yes.
it's
It's
truly something.
I've definitely said this about other films, but it's that I should not be watching this type of feeling, right? It's
This is
and because I was lucky enough to have the pause button, um, I, I,
you exercise that. You were like, I
I
gotta do it.
and I spent an entire afternoon just freaking myself the fuck out because you have no idea what this is building to. And that trailer just gives you no really good indication. Although I'm sure if I go back and watch the trailer, I'd be like, oh, everything is completely spelled out. But no,
I think it actually does a good job of misleading while also
oh, there's red
telling
herrings for
you.
sure.
Yeah, yeah. There's big red herrings, which is great, and mismarketing is usually and can be a very significant issue with horror films. Some horror films are done huge disservice by their trailers. Hereditary actually, I don't think is one of them. It's just that the film is actually quite different from what was sold. So, like the film had like a bad cinema score, for instance, which for those who don't know is when an audience coming out of the theater, they take a poll. They like, rate this on like an A and like an A plus to F scale or whatever it is, and it came out with like a D or a C or something like that, which is not good in terms of that. But that's because usually that's kind of a score is like it's a film that is going, people didn't get what they were expecting. I think people maybe went in hoping it was going to be something like The Omen, and it is something else almost entirely. It has DNA of something like that, but it is not the haunted kid movie. It's not
Right.
the creepy. It's not just the creepy child movie. It is that, but then it's so much more, and that is why it's phenomenal. Should we? Should
Yeah.
we get kind of get into it? I don't know where to start with this. It's just
Yeah,
it's
that's why I like, not that I want to rehash the entire plot, but I do like using the plot as a bit of a roadmap for discussion just
yeah,
because
yeah.
it keeps you on track. But yeah, my last comment about my history with this, my
I'll hit
first
it.
viewing when I was done, I felt like I needed to take a shower when I was done. It's just,
Hmm.
I was so just unsettled by everything that I had just witnessed that I felt unclean in some way. It's I don't
Yeah.
know a better way to describe it, but this film does something to you for sure.
It really does. I was sort of speechless, weirded out. I didn't know quite what to feel, but I knew that I had not felt anything like that before in terms of cinema. And that really, especially when you do go back and rewatch it, it's actually apparent from that first shot, isn't it? It's a slow pan, and I know you've made notes for this, so you can feel free to you're wrong me, like because I probably will misremember some stuff, but I have it's not like I have watched this film a dozen times. I've watched it about maybe 5 times in all. Like my first theater experience seeing it, I then got the Blu-ray, and I've watched it 2, 3, or 4 times more since. And the last one was fairly recent, but it is just because the imagery is so there that I can remember. Yeah, this. Oh, actually, because the film
Well, it
does
opens
open with
on
the
the
title card.
obituary.
On the
Yes.
obituary of Ellen Taper Lee, the matriarch of a family. It is a film about grief. It is a film about
Yes.
it is a film about mental illness. It is to call it it is almost like it's not the dictionary definition of a psychological horror film, but it is so psychologically you know intense and complex. Yeah, because you get this, white text on black background, obituary of a character who is featured on screen very little, to the point where, in
Not even
fact,
credited, actually. The actress.
exactly.
Yeah.
I just found that out. I went on that Wikipedia page. I was like, I got to brush up a little bit. 5 minutes
But
before we record.
but yeah, I'm very glad that you bring up this zoom out from the treehouse into the workshop, and
where
then
where the film is it's like it's telling you where it's going to end up at the start. Basically, it's cyclical in that regard. And you zoom out from this tree house that is situated right outside the window of a house, and you go
pans
past
over and
pans over these models, all these miniature models that are within a workshop style room, and then zooms in through the same window that we have just looked through, and transitions seamlessly, might I add.
yes, to Peter's bedroom. Yes.
The son, Peter Lee, goes into his bedroom the morning of his grandmother's funeral. And his dad, the dog goes in at first, the door opens up, or the dad wakes him up.
It's one of those typical dad knocks, but he's not waiting for a response. He's just walking in.
He just was like, get up. And he says, it's
where's
time
your
to get
sister?
ready. Yeah,
Hey,
where's your
did she
sister?
sleep in her room last night? And then he trudges out to the treehouse and climbs up, and she's got like a couple of space heaters or something, but she just snaps awake all out of it. And he's like, "You're gonna get pneumonia. What are you doing out here?" Also, we've completely neglected to mention this is Gabriel fucking Byrne. I love this dude, and his Irish accent slips through here and there in this film. But that's great.
I don't think it matters too much. Like, genuinely, it's not an Oscar Isaac Moon Knight situation where the British accent is one of the worst I've ever heard. I love you, Oscar Isaac, but your dialect coach let you the fuck down. This is not about Moon Knight. It's about Gabriel Byrne.
But that accent is bad, to be fair. Yes, it's very, very bad. But yeah, love Gabriel Byrne. One of my favorite films of his that I recently just got super into again after already being into it is Miller's Crossing. There is finally a very nice Criterion Collection edition of it.
Fantastic.
And that film is so good. The dialogue.
I still need to see that. I've not actually watched Miller's Crossing.
Yeah, old Coen Brothers movie. It is a nondescript town. It could be Chicago, it could be New York, but just mob movie from like the 20s or whatever. But it's
and we might not end up talking too much about Gabriel Byrne for the reason that he is not like sidelined, but he does great work with what he's given. But he is the put upon father figure, and you feel it. You're like he is actually probably in a lot of ways the most relatable character in the film. I think in terms of the lead cast, like the one who you're just sort of like, oh, dude, yeah, like you are the audience stand-in because you have no fucking clue what is happening. But to start out with, it is a somber morning, and we transition. We actually go downstairs, don't we? With him, I think, as he starts talking to our Angel lead, MVP, Best Actress 2018 winner. Oh wait, no, she didn't even get nominated because the Academy just is like, oh, it's a horror film. It's weird. It also got released earlier on in the year. We're not even going to bother. Tony, classy as hell, incredible Colette. Like,
That's her middle name. I'm sorry. I thought it was motherfucking.
Too bad. Both work. Both work. Because she is the mother. She is the daughter of she plays Annie. And no, it's Annie Graham, isn't it? Like because she marries in. Yeah, so it's that's the fact. It focuses on the Graham family. But yeah, her mother was Ellen Taper Lee, who we see her at the beginning, in the obituary form, but we immediately get the sense that it's not like, oh, this is just a sad morning because my mum has died and we're going to her funeral. This is a difficult morning for other reasons. There is, and it's not like there's a sense of unease, but it's like it's a complicated family relationship. Clearly from the start, she says, "Should I be sadder?" Right? Like
after they get home.
That's after they get home. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I just find it interesting when Steve, the father, walks out to the treehouse. The camera actually. The focus is taken off of him to the car where she's sitting in the car, ready to go, waiting on everybody to just fucking get ready. It's time.
She wants to get it over with. Yes, she wants to get it over with. Clearly,
And I think it makes it also very clear that this family is somewhat already fractured for other reasons. And we'll get into that. But
but also I think very much, led by the mother in a lot of ways. But like a lot of mums, Peter is the elder son, the daughter Charlie, his younger sister, they're both high school age. He's
16, he's supposed to be 16, she's supposed to be 13.
Yeah, she's supposed to be 13. That's it. So, but that's they're at difficult ages, and and I think it is testament to the performances and the script from Ari Aster that stuff doesn't actually have to be spelled out in this film almost ever. A lot of it, there are some things that are explicit and obvious, but it's because he wants them to be for you. It's not like spoon feeding. It's a visual of this is something to remember. This is something to notice. Either on your first viewing or your second, or
there's a lot that comes from the actors in that regard as well, because Alex Wolff and Millie Shapiro actually knew each other from school, so they were already somewhat familiar with each other. They spent a lot of time.
They did. We're on that same Ari Aster superfan wavelength. We're just yes, and Ari Aster's direction for them was them to just go and act as go out to a fucking Applebee's or whatever, and just act as their characters. And method acting, especially recently, I think has gotten a bad rap because it's thought of as I am the character and I am going to be an asshole on the set as a result, whatever. But there is so much to, and I have fun doing this. I love performance, as you can probably tell from my exuberance. But going out into the real world and playing a part, which we do anyways, you put on a different face for going to the store or going to work or going out with your friends. We all have these different facades, and so they have that awkward sibling relationship. There's a couple of years between them, but it might as well be this chasm where maybe they were close growing up. We don't know, because in the immediate moment there is a clear disconnect.
Between and it's also very clearly established that Charlie, she's a little weird. She's got her issues, and
there's something a little off about her.
Peter, he just doesn't want to have to deal with it because he's a fucking 16-year-old. He just wants to smoke weed and get laid. It's right. It's
exactly.
And he absolutely plays that role.
Yeah, no,
But
and that is, and yeah, that really and
he sells
that's
it.
and there's and
Yes.
that, he no, not he doesn't just sell it, but there is reason for him playing that role. It is written that way for a purpose, and he um you and that, but the sense of um sort of things not being quite right does continue through the funeral. You have Annie giving a eulogy, um, and I believe the line is, um, "It feels like a betrayal to even stand here talking about her,"
Yes, because her
which
mother was just so private and
yeah, she had private friends, private rituals. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But also in the context of that, it's like a ritual is, the way you get up in the morning is
Mhm.
you get up and you make your coffee and I coffee and a banana first thing I do in the morning, like before I even like have a shower or whatever. Like it's just we all have
Yep.
rituals, right? And you don't think anything of it. But you do think, that there's again things that you're meant to draw attention to, like Charlie's, sitting there drawing her mother at the the podium there, or at the front of the room doing this talk, and it's a quite disturbing drawing. It
Yeah,
does
she's got a
it
style.
Yeah,
Yeah.
she says
Yeah.
she has an artistic vision, and she clearly is putting it forth. And yeah, she's just doing that, and is like told to stop, to kind of like let it be by her dad, like it's
Yep,
like,
but it isn't. He's such a good dad in this movie.
he's so dad.
He's the best fucking dad ever because he does the little gentle reach the hand over, slowly, very gently close the book, as in not right now. No,
Yep.
no.
Hmm.
He doesn't have to yell at her. He doesn't even have to say
Yeah.
anything to
He,
her.
he knows he
He's
knows it's
just
not his it's not he's not meant to be drawing attention at that moment.
yep.
And then we actually, the first time we see mother, grandmother, Ellen Lee is, lying in state. It's an open casket, and we get Charlie, I think, going up to her, but before that, or just at that similar time, there is a very creepy, like, strong built, suited up, because he's clearly there at the funeral. You're like, does he work there? Like,
Yeah.
bleach blonde
This film, or
dude.
sorry, this funeral is very much Hail Pyman because there are so many people that are so out of place and over the top creepy, and it's like, okay, this is all coming back.
Yeah.
And also, we get this moment. We are very much introduced to nut allergy. Nut allergy established.
Yes, exactly. Charlie is eating a chocolate bar, and mom comes up to her, mom and dad come, are there nuts in that? It's like, no,
Yeah, we
there's
don't
no
have the
nuts in it.
EpiPen. It's
No, we
like,
don't have the EpiPen. Yeah, there is a severe
what?
nut
What?
allergy.
Huh? Your daughter has a severe nut allergy, and you just don't
Okay.
carry this around in your purse.
Oh no, yeah, but it's like they forgot it morning of the funeral or whatever.
I
Um,
guess.
yeah, they and but yeah, that it's and then they just go back to the house after that, don't they? It's kind of
Yeah, and I love the little shoes off, everybody. Shoes off.
yeah. She's off.
No shoes in this house,
Yeah.
except that rule is easily broken over and over in this film. But I love it's such a dad thing too,
Yeah.
and
Yeah. And
yeah.
actually, yeah, you kind of, and there are, yeah, not just weird. It's not just that one weird guy at the funeral. There's actually it's a packed room. There's tons of people. Like, clearly, people Annie says she doesn't recognize. People she knew, but people she didn't. And they, I think, talk about going to, Annie just goes up, to like work on some stuff. But it's the next, I think, truly significant scene is her exiting or going into her workroom. She's like sorting through some stuff, right? And but then she turns out the light.
Not
Oh no,
quite
no,
yet,
not quite yet.
because
I'm jumping the show.
yeah, because we have the super awkward bedtime moment with Charlie.
Yes,
The who's gonna
yeah.
take care of me when you die,
Very,
and
yeah, but also not a yeah, not initially not a difficult, like, or is it a difficult conversation, you think, but it's
well,
like, yeah,
and
someone
it's a
significant in the
typical
family's
one
died, right?
when
Yeah, typical, yeah.
somebody who was a mother figure, a grandmother, passes
Yeah.
away, who obviously Charlie was very close to, but yeah, it becomes super clear that she does not have a tight relationship with her mother. It was with her grandmother, and
Yeah, she
yeah,
was, you were always her favorite, she when when I had you, she didn't even want me to feed you. She wanted to feed you. And that's like, you're like, what?
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
and
It's
it's this, this information that you're like, should this even be divulged? But also, it's like, clearly it's still something that, among other things,
yeah,
Annie, Tony Collette as Annie, she's like, she's not feeling sad about it, but she's so conflicted and bristled by, like, oh, like, we had to. It was clearly a very difficult relationship that she had with her mother, and
yeah.
that side of her family was not something that worked within her own family that she then had.
Yeah, and I think it's this conversation with Charlie that kind of spurs her into sorting through that box of her mom's stuff. And she finds this card that was left to her from her mother.
Hmm.
My darling, dear, beautiful Annie, forgive me all the things I could not tell you. Please don't hate me and try not to despair your losses. You will see in the end that they were well worth it. Our sacrifice will pale next to the rewards. Love, Mommy. Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah, yeah, yep,
Um,
yep, yep, yep. And you're just like, sure, 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 sure,
yeah,
sure.
yeah, cool, cool, cool.
And
Um,
yeah, yeah, yeah. And then she's like kind of weirded out by that, puts it away, deal with it later. Goes to leave the
and
room.
then the light
Yeah,
switch.
yeah. Turns the light out, takes a look, and it's not there. There, the film does do jump scares, but and this is kind of a jump scare, but kind of not,
Yeah.
because you just
Because if you were
see.
watching this in a very bright room, you might not even be able to see
Yeah,
this
yeah,
ghost.
yeah. Make sure you got the lights out. But yeah, the specter of Annie's mother is
Hmm.
standing there in the corner of the room, kind of smiling, like just
Yeah,
just just there,
and
just
Annie just
there.
lets out this very, very childlike mom,
Mom.
and then flips on
Yeah,
the light. She's gone.
she
Flip.
she's gone, just as quickly as she sort of appeared out of the ether, and again, unsettling.
Yep.
It's not a moment that is then, it's, yeah, but and clearly upsetting for her as well, because she talks to her, husband about it, and says like, I think I just saw her, and just sort of like, it's been a long day, get some rest.
And I think it's in this little conversation where we start getting this sort of bassy pulse of the soundtrack coming through.
Mm.
And if your sound isn't way up enough, you may not even notice it, but it continues through the next few scenes. And it's just the, the score doesn't have like real particular themes that are, I think, super standout. But what it does really well is help set the mood just over and over
Well,
throughout this
and
film.
yeah, it is a guiding hand rather than a this is how you're meant to be feeling in the moment element
Hmm.
of a score. And by the end of the film, it really sort of like it comes to the fore a bit more, and it's, yeah,
Hmm.
Colin Stetson absolutely killed it.
Oh yeah,
Fantastic soundtrack,
yeah,
and score for the film.
yep.
Um,
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, no, no. Yeah, it's just next up we go to, Annie. Well, we do have, do we have Peter in the classroom that next? It's like the classroom scenes, or is it? I
Yeah,
can't
we
remember.
start to get into the classroom scenes here. We have Charlie's class. where she's supposed to be taking a quiz, but she's fucking around with a little toy. She likes to build toys from
Models,
just
yeah,
found
she's
things.
she's very crafty, you know.
Yes.
She's
Well,
just
she takes after her
taking what
mother
she
in that
finds.
regard.
Yes,
She
exactly,
likes
because
to construct things from nothing. And
because the models that we mentioned at the start of the film are made by Annie. She makes her career, her thing is
she's a
making these
miniature
very
artist.
miniature artist, these very precise, um, you know, miniature, like what's the there is a particular word for them, but this a scene,
Diorama.
a diorama. That's it. Yeah,
Yes.
these dioramas of spaces and places and moments in time.
Yes, and we can very, very clearly see from these models that they are scenes from her life, in
Mhm.
particular about the waning years of her mother. And
You have
eh,
you and I think it was in you have that you get to see that scene that was just talked about when she kind of like turns around at one point. This is might be happening even later, but it doesn't matter.
yeah,
The image of her mother
with her
offering
breast
with
exposed,
her
yes, yeah.
breast exposed to feed her granddaughter. Strange, really
Yep.
fucked up and weird. Like
Little
not
not,
something that not something
yeah.
that happens in Western culture at least. Like or at least something that is gonna bristle and make you go, ugh, yeah. But yeah, and then we also have it at the same school. Well, we have the shocking Charlie's classroom scene of this, put the toy away, let's finish the quiz,
And
and then
you see it coming,
but
but
then it hits a bird.
yeah.
Yeah, that's fantastic. That's the sound of it. This bird hits the window. Of course, the entire class is then not focused on the quiz. But yeah, a bird clearly just like went right in. And you think, oh, that's messed up. But we'll get we get back to that because we also have Peter. What is he doing? He's a teenage boy. He's sat behind a girl in class and
Staring at that
he's
ass. That's right.
staring at that ass, like, which is like it's just a very like it's the exact angle that his viewpoint would have, and so it's a moment that makes you laugh because it doesn't look. It's not objectifying. It is an his view is the male gaze, but it is not like
And
it's
it's
not
a
a
very
Michael Bay.
blank gaze from the expression on his face there, right?
Yeah, he's like, yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
but
And the
he's
and he's not paying attention in class. Of course he's not.
not at all, no. And it's your typical English class. I love how it's an homage to Halloween and a discussion about fate. And
Yes. Talking about like I think it's Achilles or it's a Greek, definitely a Greek. I feel
okay,
like it's like if I recall right, it's like a Greek, discussing or the hero's journey. Like, is it, is it more or less tragic if the hero has no control over what's going to happen to him? It's that kind of discussion that he is completely oblivious to. What
because
we, of
he's
course,
busy checking out this girl he likes and
he gets
responding
a
to text
text.
messages from friends about going to smoke a bowl at lunch. And
Yeah,
yep, like I said, he's just all about getting high and getting
yeah.
ass, and that's because he's a 16-year-old teenage boy. It's it is what it is, right? Um,
Yeah. Yeah, and that's why, of course, when he like gets invited to a party, he's like, "Oh hell yeah,
uh-huh.
let's freaking go."
Yep.
But that same bird, that pigeon we saw fly into the window when the kids get let out for recess, we go to find Charlie investigates what has happened to it, and there was again shown significantly in that prior classroom scene a pair of scissors that she noticed, and
Yep. Yeah.
she goes to decapitate and cut the head off of this. She snips it. She
like
snips
you
the head
do.
off yeah, like like this dead animal. She just takes the head of it for one of her models, of course.
Of course.
Why wouldn't you? It's every child's fondest memory.
Yep, it's fun for a girl and a boy. It's just Yeah, it's very weird. And she knows this is something that she should not be doing because that super guilty spin around after she does it and stuffs everything back into her hoodie. Um,
Hmm.
you know, but nobody seems to notice because I think she's that kid that people, definitely don't pay attention to because, again, she's a little strange. It's
And is it that after she turns around that we have a is that where we see our first figure through a
I think
fence?
so.
Yeah,
Yep.
there is a white-haired lady standing across the road from the school. There's
Just
like,
little.
there's like,
Yeah.
just she gives a little like creepy wave to Annie after she's done this. No, not to Annie, sorry, to Charlie.
Yeah.
And again, we are given this sense that like, we are, the family is being watched. We are watching the family, and they are being watched,
Hmm.
in a way that is because it was not a dissimilar vibe to this creepy man who smiled very widely at Charlie when she was at her grandmother's casket at the funeral.
Hmm. And as
And
weird as that was, I mean, when you're a kid and you're at a funeral and there's always like people that knew the family member that you don't know that are always going to, give you some kind of reassuring smile or something, and it's going to be weird, except we all know it's weird for, many different reasons.
that's it. Is that actually that was a weird like we don't know who this character is. We don't find out, and it is just creepy. It's
Hmm.
just unsettling, and not to a point where we're like, this is funny and crazy and creepy, and it's like, no, this is just very, very just yeah. You're kind of again. It just adds another layer to that. I don't like watching this. Why is it? Why do I feel this way? And
Yeah.
yeah, the film continues that thread after the kids get home from school, and you have a awkward conversation between Peter and his mum, where he's like asking her if he can borrow a car to go to a party, right? You know,
Yep.
you get, it's similar to the text he got in class. Like he's, got like a friend
Hmm.
texting him, just he's smoking weed out the window so he doesn't get
Yes,
caught.
and you see his breath, exhaling there, coming out the window, and the camera zooms back and goes into focus on somebody else's breath outside,
Watching him
watching
from
him.
the window, or watching him at his window. They're stood at far away from the house in a way, and
Hmm.
you're thinking to yourself, yeah, that again, very.
So
But it's almost a blink and you miss it. But
yeah,
it's like it's there
yeah,
and it's
I
not
think that's
right.
one of the things I noticed for the very first time in this rewatch. I
Hmm.
love it because like, who the fuck is this watching?
Yeah.
But before this stuff happens, I think it's when they come home from school. Annie is in the workshop and she's working this into a model, but she's researching norms on discerning presumed apparitions.
Yes, she's
So
doing her research. She's
she
like,
hasn't let it go that she thinks she saw the ghost of her mother.
yeah,
Um,
yeah. She wanted that day to just be that, and
mhm.
get it over and done with. It seems, but because she yes thinks she saw the ghost of her mother, she's going down a rabbit hole. She is disturbed
Mhm.
by it, in
Yep.
clearly a not insignificant way.
Yep.
Um,
And people come home, and she gets up and she realizes the door to her grandma or her mother's room is open, and she looks down, and there's this big triangle kind of burned into the floor, and I'm sure that was there when her mother was living with them, but she
mhm.
kind of stares at it for a little bit, and then she's talking to her husband, Stephen, and Peter comes up with the phone. Hey, Dad, it's for you, the cemetery.
Yep, and
And
and he's like, he takes the call, and you know away from the family, and
mm-hmm,
we hear him we don't hear the other end of the conversation, but we hear desecrated.
mm-hmm,
What the fuck? Like, what do you mean, right?
yeah,
And then
it's
you
just a
know,
billing thing. It's
yeah.
yeah,
He shrugs it off when asked about it by Annie, just some billing crap,
mm-hmm,
and then we have yeah yeah, Peter asking after that, whether he can go to this party. He needs to borrow the car to drive there.
Yeah, take your
They
sister
live,
with you.
yeah, and the issue is pushed, like, she's just like, it's just a barbecue. It's just sort of like, a school thing. It's a school, you're trying to shrug it off because
Right,
of,
right.
you're trying to pull the wool over his mother's eyes. Where you're just sort of like,
Yeah.
he's like,
But
well,
his
I'm
mom is
driving, so
also
I want.
very much, I was you before you were you.
Yeah,
And
yeah. I know there'll be beer there. I know there'll be alcohol there. I'm just asking, will you be drinking? But it's not a straightforward. It's not just you again just get this sense that there is a push and a pull and a difficulty in the relationship,
Mhm.
somewhat beyond the standard. He's a teenager. There is almost an unspoken difficulty in this interaction, and after sort of asking, after but Charlie is going to go to the party, basically.
Mhm.
That's the mother wants it. She clearly wants to be heard and listened to in this, and it's like, Charlie's going no matter what. And
Yeah, that
we
back and
also
forth between them, though, this just they know exactly how to push each other's buttons. It's like,
Mhm.
well, does she want to go? And he does it with this sigh. Does she want to go?
Yeah, and
Did
he
you
goes,
ask her?
and he goes looking for her, and he can't find her. He goes looking for his sister, and he can't find her, in the usual places, right? And
Yeah,
that's
yep.
and this is when we then see a shot that was kind of put forth in the trailer. And actually, I think it should also, we didn't mention something. This is quite significant. Charlie has tics. She has not just an odd way about her, but she has a particular tic, which is like a
A
like a
cluck
yeah
or
yeah
something.
yeah a
Yeah.
cluck, or a clicking of the tongue. Yeah, just like that, Joe Mertens. And it's we sort of see her walking outside the house in there. They're kind of in the middle of nowhere. They've got like woods surrounding the house, but she's walking through like, tall grass, basically going towards a lake. And then when we get to see what she's seeing, it looks like her grandmother from the back, and there's this circle of fire that is also there within the water, or like over the water. It's something.
I
It's
kind of thought it was just in the field,
yeah, just in the field, yeah. But like
yeah.
it's a very odd image. You're like, wait, what? And you get her clicking, and then it is
Hmm.
brusquely interrupted, almost immediately by, Annie, just furious that she's, what are you doing out here in the cold in your bare feet? You'll catch your death. Like, she rushes her out, like, and kind of brings her back in, and
She's pretty rough with her.
she grabs her. I think that it's maybe a kind of and she's a mum.
Yeah.
She is doing this out of love, but equally she's just like, she wants to have control where clearly she doesn't.
Yeah.
And that's a big theme overall in the film, for the
Yeah.
family at large as well. And that's where we then get, your sister's going to this party, you're taking her.
Great.
And yeah, great.
I'm so stoked.
Yeah,
Let's
yeah,
do this.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, I'm the happiest teenager ever.
I love that she rides in the back seat. She is very much still a kid.
Yeah,
It's
you do get that. Yeah, that, and but again, it's putting them at a distance from one another.
hmm
You have, and you
hmm
feel that. Yeah, she's in the back seat of the car, visible in the
He's
rear view
looking at her through
mirror.
the. Yep. Yep.
And she's just like, almost like, not lucid. Just
Mhm.
she does her little click, and it's an awkward car ride. There's not a word
Yep.
exchange between them.
And as they're
Um,
driving down this dusty Utah road, that's something
we
else that I learned for the very first time watching this film. This takes place in Utah. Okay.
I did
It's,
not know that. I did not know that.
it,
Yeah,
it
but
it
there we
is
go.
beautiful scenery in this film.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah. It looks fantastic.
Yeah. But they
Yeah,
drive by that pole and they see, well, we
yeah.
see rather Pyman's sigil on the pole.
Yeah, instead of just continuing to follow the car, a quick pan brings us to this symbol, which we become familiar with on, like a telegraph pole, like a big wooden, classic telegraph pole. But then before we know it, before we get a chance to really think about what that is,
Yep.
and actually, there are just so many little things that we end up forgetting in a rewatch, like when
Well, at the
Annie
funeral,
was at,
it's yeah.
it's at the funeral. Annie is wearing a necklace with it on, that was given to her by her mother, presumably. And then the fact that we see, in addition to the big triangle in her grandmother's old room, on the wall next to Charlie's bed when they're having that little attempted heart-to-heart scene, the evening of the funeral, you see, the word, is it Satiny? I don't know. It is
Something like that, yeah.
yeah. It is a.
It's one of three things we see in this film
yeah,
written on the wall. Yes.
Yeah. We see three words written on the wall.
So
and it's done, and it's so small, but it's noticed by Annie. It's noticed by Annie. She's like, "Who put that there? Like, what is that?" I guess Charlie must have just written it, like seen it somewhere. She just it's not even properly addressed and right. But we go to the party, music's pumping.
Just one thing before that I want to say about Pyman's sigil. They did the thing where they modified it from the actual sigil of this demon because it's considered fairly uncouth to use actually demonic symbols
demonic iconography
within the film because it's considered very bad luck, and the productions that have used actual demon iconography tend to be beset by not great things.
Wow.
For example, The Exorcist.
Wow, that's fascinating. That's a great fact, man. Like I never even thought about that, but yeah, that makes so much sense, right? Like, of course.
Yeah, also creepy as fuck. But
yeah.
Enter the party again, where it's a party atmosphere. This chick in the kitchen who's chopping nuts is chopping walnuts in the most maniacal way possible. Like you're gonna lose a finger doing this, girl.
Yep. Chopping nuts up. They're making a cake. It's a party. There's there's gonna be cake.
It's only gonna take several hours before this thing's ready to eat. But hey, whatever.
Hey, no. They're using cake mix.
I suppose.
I bet it's Betty Crocker. It's just it's a chocolate cake, and you get the same girl that Peter was obsessed with in the class. We get the kind of classic modern barely verbal teenage interaction between them, and it's like, do you smoke? Yeah, I got the good stuff, let's go into this room, but Charlie is lingering awkwardly sort of there behind him still, not next to him. It's like, that's just my sister.
Hey, look over there, they've got cake, you better hurry, they're gonna run out.
And she does not want to she doesn't want to be there, clearly, and he doesn't necessarily want her there, but she's there, and she's like, they're not giving cake out to just, and she's like, it's a party, they're giving it out to everybody. So she queues up, gets a piece of cake, and and devours it. She loves chocolate. We saw her eating it earlier in the film. She goes to town on that.
Candy is her thing. And I know she's only supposed to be 13, but when you have a severe nut allergy and you're at least junior high age, middle school age, wouldn't you be carrying your own EpiPen at that point?
No, because clearly she's had her parents take care of her, and we haven't got the EpiPen, right? But,
I guess, but you would also think that she's pretty good at avoiding nuts at this point. She's not a small child.
I just think that even though she's not a small child, I think that completely undiscussed, that there is a special educational needs. She is, maybe it's like an Asperger's, or you don't ever quite get what's going on with her, but it's she just does, but is also very introverted as a teenager, and is unfortunately
she's very socially awkward.
Yes. Yeah, very socially awkward, and there is a lot about her that is where she, not just that, but where she is a teenager, but maybe she has more of a a brain of a younger child. It might seem, she's still just drawing and doing her own thing and like making things, and
Yeah, and they talk about that in the bedroom where the girl that Peter likes is like, "So is that your sister? She was drawing me last week," and then she drops a hard R word. But
Yep. Yeah. Did she make me look exactly? Yeah. She made me look like this. And but then after cutting back and forth to Charlie going to rush to get water after eating this cake. Clearly something's gone wrong, and then we think, yeah, okay, the very obvious nut cutting. There was nuts in the cake. She goes to the bedroom. You know, I feel I can't breathe. Like I feel like my throat is closing up, and the kids are stoned as hell. They're like,
yeah,
they've
but
been
it's
smoking
time to
it.
go. All of a
It's time to
sudden,
go.
I mean,
Yeah.
Peter's a dumbass in this movie, and he's super irresponsible. But at the end of the day, he really does try to be a good brother. He is gone.
Yeah.
He picks her up and he goes. And part of that, I think, is trying to be a good brother, but also the fear of God of what his parents are going to do.
Yeah,
Because
it's that fear of what was going to happen with the mother. Like he knows that she didn't want him to go out to this party. Clearly, like it was like she would have rather that this wasn't even
this
happening.
is your penance. You're going to take your sister.
Yeah,
Yeah.
precisely. So, he's holding her, carrying her basically. He carries her out to the car. She is short. She's, not, throws her in the back of the car and goes back down that same dirt road. Like he is flooring it.
He's hauling ass. And so here's where, and I had mentioned earlier, I think we should definitely go into how much the coven or cult or whatever you want to call it is involved with everything that happens in this film. But I think they very clearly placed that deer in the road right there.
Yeah, because we go back along that same road. Charlie is like gasping for air. She is, to the point where she is having a severe anaphylactic shock. She opens up the window, loose papers from the back of the car start to go flying because of the speed they're going at, and she sticks her head out of the window, and at that after that there is something, a deer, whatever, like a dead animal placed in the middle of the road. Peter has to swerve hard to avoid it, and
thunk.
Yeah, there is a hard thunk,
and he slams on the brakes.
Right. Yep.
And calls out for Charlie. Doesn't hear anything, but he understands what happened very quickly.
And that same shot we saw earlier on, a slight look up to the rear view,
but he can't bring himself to quite get there.
Yep, he can't get there. It pans, and again, we're seeing it from his exact perspective. He, even if we don't know it at this point, he's kind of the protagonist. Tony Collette is, that's the thing, is that he's the first person we see in the film, and so when you rewatch it, you get this sense. It's like we get very few direct, like this is what the character's eyes are doing, point of view shots in the film. Everything else is from a more objective third, being seen, we're not seeing the breath of that person who was watching him from the window come out under the camera, like in front. It's like it is just there on the side, kind of thing. This is the aforementioned like 40 minutes into the movie, into like a 2 hour.
You thought this kid was going to be creepy for the entire thing? Ha ha! We got you fooled.
And you feel exactly how Peter would feel at the moment. That's how masterful this film is. That so early on, you kind of you're like, oh, holy fucking shit! I was like just on the exact edge of my seat, and I imagine this was a point where you had to pause it, man. Like,
yeah, absolutely. And he just drives home in a complete state of shock.
Yeah,
gets out of the car and just fully clothed crawls into bed.
Yeah.
And so this is based on a story that I guess this took place in Georgia, where a couple of friends were out drinking pretty heavily, and the buddy was feeling like he was going to throw up, the passenger. So he rolls down his window and ultimately gets decapitated with a sign or
On a telephone
or
pole.
telephone pole or something like
Oh
this.
my god, I had no idea. I've got the
You're
Wikipedia
reading
page
it right
open.
now. Okay.
Oh
And his
my
buddy
god.
driving didn't even realize it happened. Got all the way home.
Hutchison, the driver, drove home with his childhood friend and passengers, headless corpse in the car, and fell asleep until a passerby walking with their toddler
Oh
noticed the
God.
body still in the truck the next morning and notified authorities. This happened in 2004 in Marietta, Georgia.
Yeah.
And it wasn't that he had an allergic reaction, but it was the latter had leaned his head from the vehicle to relieve symptoms of inebriation. So that's where, because this is one of the points where, like, how much was the cult involved, and you think to yourself, probably some people watching it are like, oh my god, this is so ridiculous, like, how has that even happened? It actually freaking happened in real life, and it's based on it, like, not like based on a true story kind of a film, but that makes it even more. I'm literally getting chills just thinking about it, and it's not just because I'm wearing a short sleeve shirt.
So there, as much as they set up physically for these events to happen, I'm sure there were also supernatural elements that caused everything to align, because that is very much the direction that this film heads in.
And we remain with Peter and his guilt and his numbing
as he's
himself
going
to it.
bed, you hear the mom and dad from behind their door saying, "Oh, hey, they're home. Okay.
Oh, good. Oh, good. Oh, good. They're home. Like, we can go to bed now. They're home safe. Parents do it. Parents have done it, and they will continue to do it to the end of time. But we sit with Peter, close up on his face.
Yeah, he hasn't been able to sleep since this happens. His eyes are wide open. He hears his mom go downstairs, go out to the car.
I'm just going to go to the store to get some supplies. We hear
Be
her
back
say,
in 20. And
and then that scream
that continues into a wail that just does not stop.
It is blood curdling. Like, you think you've heard a blood curdling scream, like Toni Collette's performance in that moment. It's absolutely incredible, but and we don't even get to see it. That's the thing, is like, that's how much it's meant to be like, yes, we have to be focused on Peter here, and you find out why. Like, later.
We talk about how this is a film about grief, and boy, this part in particular really is, and this is very much a theme in Ari Aster's work, carried over into Midsummer.
And from his short films that he did before, his featured debut, Hereditary. Aster originally pitched Hereditary as a family tragedy, careful not to call it a horror film outright. And he said it's rooted in family dynamics, trauma, grief, different works like Carrie, and The Cook, The Thief, his wife and her lover, were influences for it. It's saying, like, it begins as this is a tragedy, like a true tragedy. If something happened, and
I think it's when she's wailing on the floor and saying that she just wants to die, and Steve is consoling her. I think that's when we get the shot of the wallpaper in their room with Zazas written on the wallpaper, and I think that's an Aleister Crowley thing. I can't recall what it's all about, but it's one more bit of
this is happening, and just that was written before any of this happened by someone else. The grandmother, probably, actually. Let's think about that. Like, the grandmother, or maybe even one of the cult members. Who knows? But we know
who have very clearly at some point in this film, when we're not watching, have been going in and out of this house.
We get that sense. There's like, I feel like there's a reference to, like, a door or a window being left open, or some point, something like that. And we have actually skipped over entirely, not in a bad way, but throughout this, at points, we have seen Annie, and we find out a lot about more about Annie's side of the family when she goes to a bereavement group, like a support group for people. This happens much earlier. We get her first visit. She's going out of the house. She's going to the movies. She's not telling her family that she's going to visit this. And we
Yeah.
get a fantastic monologue from Tony Collette, going
Yep.
into
Yep.
detail
I
about
did
the
have a note
fate.
about this earlier
Yeah,
that I completely missed. Just
don't
the
worry.
amount of mental illness and trauma in her family is just
And she goes into explicit detail about how um her father died of starvation,
Mhm.
and she just says my father died of starvation, and my brother
Who was
hung himself.
schizophrenic.
He was schizophrenic, and he hung himself in his bedroom because and his suicide note said, accused their mother, of putting voices in his head. And we
They're
and
spelling out the plot of this movie in
yeah,
this
yeah, yeah,
monologue.
yeah, yeah. They are, but it is done in such a way that throughout this film, you you feel everything that the family is feeling,
Hmm. It does a
and
very excellent job in putting you in that place.
yeah, it is woven in and executed in such a way that you're not. It's not like you're like, oh my god, what's the evil cult gonna do next?
Right.
Because it is peppered in. It is a touch here, a touch there, a symbol here, a message there, something that upon first viewing seems unsettling and weird, and you're like, what the hell is this? But it starts to piece it together, but not to a point where I personally was able to be like, I feel like I would defy anyone to just watch this completely blind and like, be like, oh, I knew that was gonna happen. Like,
Yeah.
it's like, no,
Yeah,
no,
not at
no,
all.
it's just
Not at all.
masterful.
Like you said, it's just a little peppering in of these little scenes. There was something else I skipped over earlier on. It was around the time that she's going to the support group,
She meets
and
Joan.
before they go off to the party, it's that she's procrastinating from working on these miniatures by building a miniature of the show that they will be in and placing miniatures of her miniatures in the miniature
It's a
venue.
diorama within the diorama. Yeah, she's getting calls. There's messages like, call to extend the deadline.
Hmm.
Clearly,
And it's
what is going
also
on is affecting her work.
where we get the first shimmer of Pyman splashing across the wall as Charlie's working on her toys at her desk.
Yes, we did get that.
Which will
Yeah,
come back over and over again throughout this film. So I'm sad that I
yeah.
missed that, but
Oh no, no, no,
um,
no, 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 no. There are supernatural elements, and
mhm.
they are few and far between, and deliberately so, because the film wants you to remain grounded with the family and
Mhm.
the difficulty of what they're going through.
And
And
while Annie is going through this extreme grief, before we get to that scene with the support group, or at least the parking lot of the
Mhm.
support group again, we kind of get a couple of planes of action because we also get Peter at school just trying to get through his day and dealing with his grief himself. And they get that scene under the bleachers where they're smoking pot and he can't breathe. And I think this is just a little bit of the Charlie Pyman thing, um, ultimately starting to wear him down to where he's starting to experience some of their experiences as well.
Mhm.
Uh, Also, one of the cult members is his friend. Um, the kid with the man bun is absolutely one of the cult members.
I had no idea. That's incredible. Wow,
These
wow.
people are peppered throughout the
They're
entire
everywhere.
film.
They're everywhere. They're always being watched. I did not realize it even went like that. That's fantastic. Wow. Oh
So
wow.
then skip forward to the parking lot where Annie thinks she's going to go into this support meeting and she's like, nope, fuck it, can't do it. And Joan comes flying out of the night and stops her.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, hey, I recognize you from a couple of months
Yeah.
ago.
Yeah.
And
Joan is played by Ann Dowd and done so very well, because
she's fantastic.
you get the impression that she is this kind, supportive friend, or would be friend, who understands what Annie's going through and gets it on a level that her own family will never do. So this connection is forged to the point where you know after we see a flyer for a seance go through the door, they have a seance
On
later on.
top of the other mail, so it's
Mm,
clearly
yeah,
being planted.
exactly. Yeah.
Um,
But
yeah.
we also have like the families falling apart in amidst all of this, because you have the dinner table scene where
Oh, yeah.
yeah, Annie
It's
is it's like, no,
Oh,
nice,
we will definitely get there. But before then, you know, yeah, you're right. The family is fracturing. Annie can't sleep in the same bed as
Mhm.
Steve. She's got to go sleep in the treehouse to kind of feel closer to Charlie. She's out there with a blanket and space heaters, just like Charlie used to be. And
Mm.
finally, she accepts this invitation to go have tea with Joan, and she notices the mat outside, and it's like, God, that looks familiar. Hey, my mother used to make mats just like these. Oh,
Yep.
isn't that funny?
Mm-hmm.
That's our
Mm-hmm.
first little hint that this might not be as innocent as we expect. But they sit down, they have tea. Annie tells her a little bit more about just I think it's this is where we hear for the first time about how she sleepwalks,
Yep.
and how she woke up in the middle of the night. And this is the first time I actually heard this
Yeah,
part,
yeah, yeah.
because I had always heard that she had covered herself and
No, no, no.
Peter
She
with
had
paint
covered
thinner,
yeah, yeah.
but I did not hear that she had also covered
Covered
Charlie in
Charlie, yeah.
paint
She
thinner.
had covered her and both her children in paint thinner and was
And
holding a lit match.
she woke
And
herself up lighting the match. So,
yeah.
and this is, where upon rewatches you realize, oh, this was her trying to stop everything from ultimately coming to fruition.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah, subconsciously doing so. And yeah, you kind of you just yeah, you get that, and it's God, this is the point. You'd think after seeing this film so many times I would cease to be affected by it, but it's like it is just chilling,
Hmm.
and not like go goosebumps, but just like it's messed up in a way that you can't stay away from.
And
It's
then, speaking of messed up, we move to Annie working on a miniature of the accident site. And
hmm
Steve comes in and he's like, Jesus fuck, what? Holy
yeah, yeah.
shit.
This
What
is
if Peter
awful.
sees this? And her response is, this isn't about him.
Yeah, it's an
It, I,
objective view of the accident.
well, fucking hell, come down to dinner. And
Yeah,
this is one of the best parts of the film here. So I will say, I am a huge, huge fan of scenes around a dinner table or a breakfast table in films,
especially
especially when there's a lot of
family
drama being laid out,
tragedy.
grievances
Yeah.
being aired. I think my favorite of all time is perhaps the breakfast table at the very end of Moonstruck, where all the plot threads come together.
hmm
And uh, you have the old man who's so fucking confused by the end of it all, but he's got that great line when everybody's sitting there in silence. And he just says, "Somebody tell a joke." But if for those watching, if you have never seen Moonstruck, it is one of Nicolas Cage's best unhinged performances from the '80s. It
I
is,
am. I'm putting it on the list. I've never seen it, and I love me some Nicolas Cage. That's fantastic, and
yeah.
it's got Cher in it as well. You can't deny
And
Cher's
Olympia
power.
Dukakis won an Oscar for her supporting role in this film. She is,
Oh, brilliant.
yeah. I always get this confused as far as the year it came out, because for the longest time I thought that both Cher and Sigourney Weaver were both up for Best Actress, dueling Moonstruck and Aliens, but no, they were separate years.
I see. There we go.
But yes,
No.
the dinner table scene where first of all, Annie's pissed because Steve made dinner because she was going to make dinner. And Peter can pick up on this. So he's going to make sure to compliment his father for the good dinner. And then, and
Interesting. That is
you
fascinating.
you can absolutely pick this up.
Oh
and
wow,
and
wow. Yeah,
Steve's
my
like, "Oh,
interpretation. Yeah, thanks,
yeah,
buddy.
yeah. Oh, thanks, buddy." And this is where Annie just kind of snickers. It's like, okay, you're sucking up to your father because you fucking hate me, but she doesn't come right out and say that. But this is where Peter's like, something on your mind, Mom? And everything just spirals out of control from here. We get yet another great delivery, essentially a monologue from Tony Collette about just nobody taking responsibility for the things that they've done and
Yeah,
how
and you just
yeah.
sit there with that face on your fucking face, like a fucking face on your face. It is yeah, there is a gif of like that exact monologue moment, and it's perfect because it just captures it. Just like she
I,
contorts her face with anger and
mhm.
frustration and
I use the one
vitriol.
all the time where she points with her fork and says, "Fine."
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, it's
but
yeah. It explodes in a
yes,
way that
give
you kind
all
of
the awards to Tony Collette from
yeah.
here to eternity.
But that's
Um,
it. That's it. That's exactly it. This is that scene and so many others are why she should have won Best Actress. And and you immediately get to see it's like, oh wow, this is not. This is not necessarily irreparable, but it is only going to contribute further to the downfall of this family. It seems, unfortunately, they're
yeah,
not gonna. You're not coming back from this, right?
yeah. There's a point where Steve's like, "Hey, we are not doing this. This is stopping now," and she just storms off.
Yeah.
And you see him console Peter. He touches his hand or whatever, and it's fucking awful, and
Mm.
also just amazing. And I think we cut from here to the hobby store where
Yep,
she's like,
basically, where
that's Joan,
another
right?
encounter with Joan in a car park, and
Uh-huh. And
because
Joan's a little unhinged.
yeah, and because we had seen this like open séance, like leaflet posted through the door,
Mm-hmm.
very not with regular mail, but like the mail had already been delivered by the postman, and someone we don't see specifically came and put this open seance leaflet. It does just it gets ignored, like
Mm-hmm.
it's people throw it away as junk mail or whatever.
So, and Dad's
So
performance here, where her
yes,
character is putting on a performance,
yep.
because at this point, I wouldn't fault you if you still thought that she was genuine in her intentions.
Completely. Yeah, she is, and it's and upon first viewing, you're just like, oh, she happens to be there. It doesn't
Yep.
feel odd. It's like, oh yeah, they've
Except
just
her
run into each other.
grandson's chalkboard is sitting in the back of her open car because she just bought it while she was there at the hobby store.
Ah, oh,
So,
interesting.
yeah, this
Wow,
is
wow.
all planned out.
Yep.
Annie is being monitored. Her family is being monitored by
Mm,
this cult like crazy.
wow.
And okay,
It just
I need you to come with me. I need you to come with me
yeah.
back to my
So
home. I have to show you something.
I went to this séance and it was real. They brought back a Civil War general or something like that, and it's you kind of and she and Annie is like just broken enough and susceptible enough at that point where she's hesitant because
Mhm.
she's suspicious, but she's been looking into apparitions. She's like, I'll try anything at this point. So she
Yep,
goes
and at
along
this
with it.
point too, I mean, this is her new friend. They have bonded in their grief, and
Yeah.
she's like, okay, I I can be here for her,
Yeah.
sure. And so they start this little séance, and
And we kind of and this is where it's like those little supernatural touches. It's like, oh no, actually, this film is going to go places we didn't expect because we see chalk moving on its own. We see, or a cup gets moved that they're both holding but not putting pressure on, and then things kind of you know but it's so unsettling despite but you can see the pleasure in Anne Dowd's performance. It's like,
mhm.
yeah, this is going to work.
Apparently,
But
the effect of using a magnet hidden inside the piece of chalk to draw on the board with another magnet under the table, then
yeah,
moving it
was
around.
that what worked?
Yeah, apparently it was very difficult to pull off.
Oh, of course it will have been because as the person underneath it, you can't see the and chalk is a light material anyways. But
But but
wow,
still, it's an excellent effect. I love that.
You do not think at any point like, oh, this is it's done
Yeah.
so well.
Nearly everything in this film is practical, which again, we harp on this with film,
we take
till the
our hat
cows
off
come
to
home.
them.
Yep, because practical will stand the test of time forever. Meanwhile, quite a bit from the prequel trilogy of Star Wars films looks like dog shit.
No, but it's not even about that though. It's just actually like filming in a real place with real people, and obviously it hasn't, with COVID and everything, not been possible for the past couple of years. I get it, but I think it has created an unfortunate. There's an unfortunate outcome, and maybe we were always going to go in this direction, but again, I like a lot of Marvel's Moon Knight and a lot of their shows and all the stuff that they do. They do great work. That's why they're super
Well,
successful.
they were lucky to have Benson and Moorhead, and then they're also going to get them back to do the next season of Loki. So
yeah. But it's I check out when I feel like they're on a stage and it's a blue screen. I completely
Absolutely.
I think to myself,
and
like,
it feels empty. It feels unpopulated.
And it's not even just unpopulated or empty. It's like it's an action scene, like Oscar Isaac's in a truck, and it's just like this was not filmed with a real vehicle in a real space. And watching stuff at home versus the big screen, sometimes you're not able to suspend your disbelief. But actually, it's like, no, if I can suspend my disbelief about the transition of like panning across a room of miniatures, it's clearly there is an element of CGI in that opening shot. But it's like, if I can buy that and go on with it,
seamless.
It's not about the effect. It's about the filmmaking and intent and creating a mood rather than churning something out because it's like, oh yeah, we've got to get the next TV show out, we've got to do this thing. It's like you can do better, especially when you have like unlimited funds, which this film did not have. This film was not made with like $1 billion bankrolling or whatever. But yeah, you sidetrack. The effects are great, and the effect upon Annie, of course, is great. So great
because
that
she's got to say, "I'm sorry, can we stop?" And Dad's reaction of what?
Yep,
it's almost angry.
Yeah, she's angry because it's like, well, this is happening, and this is how we get to where we want to go. But yeah, you do that. You're taken aback by that, but in a moment, it's like, actually, take this. Make sure your whole family's at home and do this. You just need to do this.
Yeah, she leaves her with, "You didn't kill her, Annie. She isn't gone."
Mm-hmm.
Which is a weird couple of sentences because "you didn't kill her," could be, read as, "Hey, this isn't your fault." But the "she isn't gone" part coupled with that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and I think it links into her wording it in a way because Annie, at that first bereavement meeting, I am to blame. I am blamed. She's putting it all on herself, and it's very, she's trying to free her from that concern so that she is open to trying to connect with Charlie's soul in a seance, and
and we get a great jump scare after this because Annie's driving home kind of in a daze, and then we get a and she just slams on the brakes, freaks out, and looks into the back seat. It is perfect. It's fucking perfect.
It's so well done, and really, in a scene that ends up being weird, the next scene where the next key scene, at least, where the seance goes on, she convinces Peter. She like wakes Peter up, and and gets Steve down there. It's just like, I went to the seance, and you can tell she's almost, there's a hysteria to her performance.
But this is after having one of my favorite tropes, especially in horror films, of waking from a dream that was a dream within a dream. Shout out to In the Mouth of Madness for some of the best of those. But yeah, she gets that first, she wakes up and she notices ants, and she follows this trail of ants to
Yes,
Peter
to
in
Peter.
bed, who's covered with them, particularly his
Oh,
face.
yeah. That's
Which,
so true. Yeah, it's such a
yep.
disturbing
And
visual.
this film does a lot of these awesome cuts. Usually it's from day to night or night to day,
Hmm.
where the camera is just left, so it's the perfect swap from the the lighting. But it's this shift of Peter saying, "Mom, what are you doing?" And this is where we get frank conversation time of, "I never wanted you."
Yeah, it
And
is such a shock.
she's like, "I
You know,
tried everything I could do to not have you.
yeah,
I wanted a miscarriage, but I'm so happy that I didn't." And
yeah,
all of a sudden, you notice, wow, they're looking really wet. And it's because they're covered in paint thinner. And she strikes up a match and wakes up again.
yeah.
Uh, and this, I think, is what prompts her to suddenly camp out in her bathroom. And you hear her going
Reciting
through
the
the
words,
incantation. Yes.
yeah. The words
Uh,
that Joan told her to
It's
say.
summoning time. Yep.
Yeah,
And now Annie's the one who's hyper unhinged because she's waking everybody up.
hmm
And boy, there's nothing like somebody rambling in a state like this that tells you that they're completely lucid to make you think, yeah, they're not. No.
yeah,
um,
and I think this is one of the actually many points, especially upon my first viewing of the film, where I'm thinking to myself like, is this all in her head? Like, what parts of this are was real? Like, we're presented it in a very naturalistic portrayal, but it's like you're kind of like, oh my god, is Annie just crazy, mentally
mhm.
ill to the point where she is seeing all these things, convinced she's doing all these things, but then
Well, and there's plenty of hints from,
Mhm.
her confession in group to,
Yeah,
her
the mental
family life and mental illness in
the
her
passed
family.
down,
Yep.
the fact that the mental illness and the difficulties they have is passed down, is
Hmm. And her
hereditary.
sleepwalking and what she did when she was sleepwalking. So,
That
yeah.
we get to see it, and you and it's clearly difficult for the family, but Peter decides he's going to go along with it. Steve is like, "What is this? I'm not having any of this. Like, this is absurd." No, we got to keep things exactly as they were, and you know she she's rushing through it. It's not quite all there as maybe it should be in terms of the steps, but it's just enough to actually, you know, I had Charlie's book. She drew this. This wasn't here before, and it's worked before. It'll work again. We can bring her back. She's still here, and then it goes, and we get so again another incredible performance moment from actually performance moments from everyone involved where it's
Mm.
like she is the voice of Charlie comes out of Tony Collette, like it's seamless. It's done so well. It's truly
Yeah,
strange.
things spiral out of control to the point where Steve splashes water on her, and she has absolutely no memory of even like doing this seance at this point.
Yeah, because there's things breaking, and she's like, "What's going on?" Like, she's
Mhm.
taken out of the trance, um, and the
Yeah, Peter just sobbing like crazy
mm,
uncontrollably. And
yeah,
then they kind of cut to him sitting on his bed, just kind of process what all happened. And they do another one of those perfect cuts where there he is in the exact same position sitting in the classroom.
yep.
And this is where he notices a little shimmer on the floor, and Pyman is basically hunting him, and he looks over and sees his reflection in the glass, and the reflection is smiling back at him with that same creepy smile on the cult
Yeah,
members' faces.
yeah. It's doing like a sneer. It's that sneer,
And we get
almost. Yeah.
another cluck that snaps him out of this and shifts us over to another scene. Um,
Hmm.
yeah, Steve just again kind of getting tough with Annie, and she just kind of implodes. This is this is where she trashes her studio.
Yep.
Because he
And
calls her and hangs up on her because he got a
she's
phone
like,
call from
don't you
school.
hang up on me.
Hmm.
Peter was freaked out, but she's just thinking to herself like, she completely ruins the studio, and
Yeah,
she
after
is
getting that phone call from the director, playing ultimately somebody from the gallery, just checking in. All our thoughts and prayers are with you, but
oh, I didn't realize that was the voice of Ari Aster. That's amazing.
yeah,
That's so good.
yeah.
I
So
yeah.
she snaps the back of that chair off listening to this, and then just goes ham on the studio.
Yeah,
Um,
and I think, but I think before that, there's also at one point we get these little hints of the supernatural. I think it was in terms of her working on something, and we kind of this is prior. I think it's where I can't remember, but like the point where she she knocks over like a paint
oh,
jar.
that's before she goes to meet Joan for the first time and go have
Yeah,
tea
the
with
first
her.
time. Is like,
Yeah.
but you actually, if you watch that shot, when she reaches for what she thinks is paint, the paint is not knocked over by her. It actually just
Oh,
knocks itself
on
over.
its own.
Like, yeah, on its own, and spills onto Joan's number, which she gave her. Like, and it's amazing. Like, you
Oh,
kind
that's
of.
good.
Yeah, really, so well done. Like you miss it the first time, but then when you're watching it intently, keen for it, it's right there. So much of it, and she
Well,
and Annie but Annie's disturbed and upset,
yeah.
and
Yeah. Steve
she's
comes
like
home and finds
something's
her
wrong.
sitting in the corner of the
Yeah,
workshop and everything's trashed. And, well, he's like, I'm sleeping on the couch because I'm not sleeping next to that. And this is where
she goes to
she
burn.
hears the scribbling
Mhm.
and she walks into Charlie's room and finds the book. And
And you can see
there's.
Peter's face being
Mhm.
he's in tears, he's crying and his eyes are crossed out, and it's messed up, and the book it has drawn these images itself, and is
Mhm.
it's like flicking through, and it's like Peter's in danger, so she takes the
Mhm.
book, takes it downstairs to where Steve is. There's a fireplace that down there in there,
Yeah,
like
I think
living
this
room.
is like there's like dual planes of action happening here because also Peter is he he's woken by a cluck and he opens his eyes and sees Charlie standing in the corner and she makes a clucking noise and then her head
Head
falls
fall
forward and
and
off and
transitions
it
to
turns
being
into
a
a ball.
basketball. Yeah, it's so good.
Yup.
It's so messed up. It's so good.
Yep, and then we see, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Again, her sleeve lights on
Yeah.
fire as she tries to burn the
Yeah,
sketchbook.
yeah, yep. And it's like, oh well, yeah, something's definitely up with this book. Something's cursed or whatever. I don't want to self preservation. She's like, I do not want to set myself on fire.
Mm-hmm.
She gets the book
Mm-hmm.
back out. And then we go to her. She's going through things the next day, right? The belongings.
Well,
And
first she goes to confront Joan, and nobody's home. But we do get that shot inside Joan's
inside.
apartment with all
Hmm.
the Pyman paraphernalia, and there's lit candles that she left unattended. So that's
Yeah,
not
yeah,
exactly wise.
and we see Peter's picture in the middle.
Yup, and we
Picture
also
of Peter.
see from the outside there's a camera monitoring the entrance of Joan's apartment that is.
Yeah. Hmm.
I
Yeah.
don't think it was there in the
Yeah,
earlier time when she
oh
went to
yeah,
go visit her.
yeah. It may have been, but we didn't see it. Or but also just and this has become like I think more common in a lot of modern horror films, especially, but films in general. But it's that shot of her walking down the hallway. It's one of my favorite shots, and one of my favorite
Oh,
versions of this
and
shot.
Astor likes to use this kind of shot
Yeah,
too.
yeah, yeah,
Uh,
yeah, yeah. We see it in Midsummer as well. The
mhm.
upside down. We see Annie walking upside down, and but it pans to follow her, and and brings the scene, right
Right
side
side
up.
up.
Yeah,
Yep.
it's so well done. It's fantastic, and then we're like, oh yeah, no, things are
Yep.
the train has left the station
Yeah.
on
So
whatever the hell is going on with this demon ritual thing, and she
yep.
goes
So
back
Joan's
home.
not at home,
And
but
Joan's
Annie
not
looks
home.
down at that welcome mat again
Was
and
reminded
thinks,
because she's like, "Oh, we've
yeah,
got
it's like,
those."
yeah. So she goes to check out her mom's stuff and she finds the mat that had been made for her as well as her brother
Hmm.
because it says Charles on it.
Yeah,
It's
and for
yeah.
Peter, and for like
Hmm. And
those
then she
mats.
opens up the other box and she finds some demonology texts.
Yeah.
In
We get
addition
we
to,
finally, for those who aren't familiar with payment, we get to see what payment is, and talks about him, the god of mischief.
Mhm.
And great riches will be brought forth to whoever is able to summon him. The host, he demands a male body. This is another key thing, and we see
Mhm.
this a picture, an illustration of someone, like sitting atop a pile of like gold or whatever.
Mhm.
And then yeah, there's a photo album as well within
Yeah.
her mother's things. And
And I think this is again that dual plane of action thing happening because we're also getting Peter being stalked by Joan at school.
yep,
And she's like,
it's
Peter, I expel you from your body. And
I cast you out.
yeah, and
You
none of
know,
the other students see her because it,
yeah. It's a very it's things when things start to get more intense. It's ratcheted up, and he's like, yeah, sitting outside, like eating lunch or whatever. And yeah,
Mhm.
but she's just like the other woman was across the street, like, and not in the school. Just like,
Yep.
he sees her through the fence.
Yep.
Uh,
And,
you know,
we get the photo album, like you said. And as she tears through it, she starts to see more and more connections with everything that was going on. And yeah,
yeah. We see
lots of pictures
photos
of
of,
Joan,
lots of pictures of Joan with her mother, and her mother dressed all in white, while a
like a
group
bride.
of,
Yeah.
almost like a bride, yeah, while a group of people rain imitation gold coins down upon her, like, she's a cult leader at this point, and it's like it's so like. But it's just, we laugh about it because it sounds like a funny image, yeah. But it's just like, oh no, like they were trying all this time to do this. But again, because this is just what Annie is seeing and experiencing, and we just
Mhm.
get that, even though we have that happening with Peter at the same time, there is just this kind of like, you know, we get the sense of like Annie's crazy, right? Like as you said, upon a first viewing, you're not necessarily thinking about how much this cult, that deal, because this is the point in the film where we find out about payment.
Mhm.
Payment is not even really mentioned up until this point in the film, as far as I can recall, like at all. We get hints of the symbol of him or whatever, but we don't
Mhm.
know this as an audience, and so I'm just sort of like, oh, we're like, oh no, we're discovering it with Tony Collette, with Annie, and it's
Yep.
so it's sublime. It's
Yeah,
fantastic.
and back at school, Peter's still being sort of stalked. You have the shimmer of payment going down the hallway, kind of like the lasers in that scene from the first
Mm.
Resident Evil film. And at the end of the hallway, you see somebody at that school also clearly works for the cult because he's
Hmm.
very, very slowly looking out the window at him. And I think there's even a little wave.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, creepy.
oh,
Another creepy figure watching him. Yeah.
yep. And then let's see.
But basically, he goes. Then we're back to with him in class,
I think
right?
before that, though, we get finally for people watching this for the very first time, we get a much better hint at what's causing the smell in the house that they're all referencing, and we get this
Yes,
from an email that Steve receives.
with
He's writing
pictures of,
somebody else about Annie's mental decline,
and
but
he's
he gets an
sitting,
email
and
from.
he's sitting at work drinking. This is
And
not
if
Mad
you
Men.
were
It's not
him,
this. You would
wouldn't
be
you
too.
be?
Yeah, yeah,
You'd
yeah,
be into the
yeah,
brown liquor too at this point.
yeah. 100%. Yeah, you'd break out that bottle from inside your desk that no one knows is there. And
Mhm.
yeah, you're at your 9 to 5, and you're just like,
But he
Jesus
gets that
Christ.
email from the cemetery about his, his
The
like
desecrated
insurance
grave
claim or
site. Yeah,
whatever.
insurance
Yeah,
claim.
you see
Yeah,
the photos of the
of, of the
dug up graves.
yeah.
Oh God, and yeah, then we cut from that to Annie confirming, and because she goes up into the attic and there's flies everywhere. Not exactly the best CG on the flies, but still,
Yeah. You get the
it still
idea.
works.
I think. Yeah.
Yep.
I think the yeah. it never like bothered me, like it's
Yeah,
but it's one of those
yeah.
things where like you kind of
You're
feel
gonna
it.
kind of have to for what they're trying to play
Yeah.
off. And
Unfortunately, this isn't the Amityville horror where they're literally just gonna like fill a room with flies or whatever.
right,
Like,
right. So she finds her mother's headless body, and there's a candle burning there, which again, very clear that people have been going in and out because somebody has to keep replacing these candles, right?
yeah,
Um,
and there
and
is
the sigils on the wall in blood.
yeah, and she's dressed in this like again white garment, this like clearly robe of the ritual or whatever, which she wasn't wearing when she was open casket at the funeral, and yeah,
and then this is where we get back to school,
and we
and
see Peter,
Peter
yeah,
gets into it with Payman. Yep.
yeah. You just have this all of a sudden, like the teacher's talking about whatever, and it's like, Peter, you got a question, and his hand is
Yeah.
up like
Because he's
this.
being puppeteered.
Yeah, he's being puppeteered by Payman, and his face is like contorted. It is so
Yeah, his eyes all red.
he's just got this like it's almost like he's having a stroke or something like that.
Yeah.
And
Oh,
the,
absolutely.
and then the class like turns around like, Peter, what's going on?
Yeah, the
And
girl behind him just jumps out of her chair.
yeah,
And
because he slams his head into the desk, and like blood completely breaks his nose,
I
bloodies
guess
it
he
up.
dislocated his jaw doing this stunt.
Really? Did he?
Yeah, it's something from a prior injury,
Oh my god, yeah,
yeah, he
because he
fucked
goes
himself
in,
up doing
and
this.
but then he after he hits his head a couple of times or whatever it is, he like he's scared of it himself, and he's back to Peter, and he's like, and you see him like just like on the floor, like completely traumatized by what's just happened, and it's and then he gets the phone rings at home. Annie is not there
Yeah,
to
she's
answer
standing
it.
outside under the treehouse because she can't stand to be in the house.
Yeah, exactly.
And
And so the dad gets the call, and has to go pick him up at school, and again you get that same thing from when he was sitting at his job. It's sort of like he's just like he just bursts into tears at this point. It's too much for him to take, right?
yeah, he nearly
like,
runs a red light, and
yeah,
then
he
when it
did.
turns green, he kind of forgets to take off again, and his world is crumbling as well.
Yeah.
So Steve brings Peter home, and he is so over Annie's bullshit at this point. She's racing at the car, trying to tell him about all these things she's uncovered, and he's like, "Get the fuck out of my way. Our kid is not well.
Yeah.
You need to help me get him in the house, get his feet."
Well,
They
what
put him into
happened?
bed, fully clothed. And this is where she starts, kind of spiraling, telling him about, well, I found my mom's body in the attic, and there's blood on the walls, and there's, all these pictures of her and this, my friend Joan. And if you're Steve at this point.
Yeah, he won't. He's like, I'm not going to entertain this anymore. Like, you need help, Annie. And you would be in that position. You would think there is a psychological problem with your partner.
Well, and he's a therapist too.
Yeah. He's literally,
I think Toni Collette said that the backstory that she was given was that she was potentially his patient at one time.
That was it. Yeah. And their relationship, went from that, which makes complete sense and is so it's
fucked up.
It's so messed up. But it's like, you know what, you feel that, and it's like he's like, oh my god, I've had to deal with this, and it's still still not right. Like it's
so, yeah. Oh god. And then she convinces Steve to go check the attic. Just please go up there. My mother's body is up there.
And he does.
You hear his scream from off camera. Yeah.
But Annie goes. Annie is not waiting for him to do this. She goes and she gets the book. She says, the book is the key. We've got to destroy it. But when I try to throw it into the fire, I caught on fire, and he's just sort of like, I won't do this anymore. They're standing by the fireplace.
And if you're Steve throughout this film, you're putting two and two together, just like he is. Like, you kept saying you were going to the movies, but you didn't. You went and you dug your mother up. This was you. We put her
Yeah,
up
exactly.
there.
Yeah,
You're doing all
and at
this.
this point, certain audience members will be along the way with it, right? Like I
Yeah,
was like,
absolutely.
just sort
Because
of
we're
like,
not 100 that she's
yeah, she
experiencing all of this.
and that in a scene where we weren't with her, she went and did it. For all we know, and that is just how well, you know, like mental illness and grief is covered in this film.
Yes.
It's kind of, yeah. I actually, yeah. It's like this is clear, like passed on to the to her, and she is unfortunately in the same way that a lot of times mental illness is you know well, I'll speak from a personal point of view. My mom clearly has issues, and a lot of those same issues are passed on to me. Like, it's just like it's clear. Like, mental illness is not born of merely the environment in which you're raised. It's like you can inherit these problems from parents, and I think that even though this is where Hereditary is fully turning into an actual horror film rather than just a family tragedy, the fact of the matter is like the film treats both of those elements completely. They're all played straight, for lack of a better term, but like they're given the attention they deserve. It's like actually the reason why by this point in the film you're like, oh no, you're like, what is happening? What is going on? Like, you're as crazed as Annie is because the groundwork is laid throughout as we've gone on to do, and that's why when she Steve refuses to throw the book into the fire, but
Well, and I think he's also realizing that what she's saying is that she's willing to sacrifice herself. She's just not strong enough to do it herself because she's still anticipating that she's gonna light up when he throws this book in.
Yeah.
But and then he's like, no, I'm not entertaining these delusions anymore. No, forget it. And ultimately, she snatches the book from him and throws it into the fire, and he's the one that lights up.
Yeah, we cut to the wide, and we see him completely engulfed in flames, and then
that shimmer, and we realize that she now. You see the change in her face as well.
With the sacrifice, it's like, oh, now she is possessed by whatever evil force has driven all of this to happen. Obviously brought forth by the cult.
And then we get another one of those cuts between day and night, and it's also peppered in with naked cult members around the house.
Yeah. The exterior shots of the day to night of the house. Yeah. All of these naked bodies then within the woods that surround the house, and you're like, oh, what the fuck is happening? And I think this next sequence is probably the best in the film, purely because it takes it's like this is where the roller coaster ride starts to like ratchet up, and
there's so many little detail bits that I really hate to miss because like you said, very much roller coaster. Peter wakes up and he sees the treehouse through his window, but instead of the typical red glow from the space heaters that we've seen throughout this film,
there is a
you can tell it's firelight. It's firelight.
There's a different light to it. And we actually get the light increasing as we are back and forth, showing a wider shot of Peter in bed, and the cinema.
He kind of struggles to get up, and when he does, it's that wider shot, and you can just barely make out Annie doing her best Spider-Man impression.
No. Yes, most certainly. Yeah, just absolutely, just like completely. Annie is up in the corner of that room, directly above him. He's distracted by the treehouse outside his window.
Yep, and he calls out for his mom and dad. Yeah. And then you cut back to the window and you see the motion light that's over the garage.
Yeah,
you see that flip on. And it's likely from a passing nude cult member. But and then we cut back to him
And so if you
And
missed it the first time, you see it again. You
then
truly
you
see
see her
her.
crawl
Yeah,
along the wall
yeah,
and
yeah,
through
like
the
a
door
but
silently.
she floats basically. She
Hmm.
floats, along the wall when he is like, and he misses it.
And
Um,
it's like just before he turns around to look into that corner that she does this.
yeah,
And
and we, to be honest, our description is butchering it.
oh, absolutely.
Yeah, yeah. The build to this and the unsettling nature of seeing her perched up in that corner and realizing it and then going, oh God, no, like, is absolutely just one of the most incredible sensations. And I still get it. I know it's going to happen, but it's right
Oh,
there,
it's
and just,
still going to give you chills.
yeah, it's still
Absolutely.
going to give you chills. There is no jump scare that will ever beat that in terms of a sense of pure, like, oh my God, dread. And like, it's so messed up. Like,
So
it's fantastic.
Peter wants to know what's going on, and he gets up, kind of slowly walks, steps into the doorway of his parents' room, and calls out for them again. And then from downstairs, we hear the bang of the overturning piano and then the snapping of the piano wire.
Yeah, and it's
And it
oh
was
my God,
multiple viewings before I caught any of that.
oh my God, of
But
course that's
because your first viewing,
well,
if you do hear the sound, you
you're
just hear
right.
the
Oh my
crash,
God, you're
right?
so right. Yeah, 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 yeah. I've just all right.
But when you know what's
Let's put a pin in that. Jesus Christ, God, it's so. This is filmmaking. This is like horror filmmaking on a level of like Edgar Wright Baby Driver. You know what I mean?
yeah,
Like where every beat of
everything
the
needs to be
script is
storyboarded and yeah.
well, no, but it's just like these songs and everything is edited to the beat of the song that is playing at that time, and
Hmm.
orchestration of it. It's it,
Yep.
but also it doesn't draw attention to itself in the way a lot of films do when they are
Well, other
putting.
films would show the piano or, would
Yeah.
absolutely call out specific attention to what's happening.
And it's like, actually, show but don't tell. That's what cinema is, right? It's like they show
Right.
but don't tell, and it's like they are still showing even when they're not. Like that's the beauty of this film. You're seeing it even when you're not.
Hmm.
It's or you're hearing it. It's the sound design is so good, and yeah, he sort of like rushes down. He goes
Yeah, well,
downstairs.
I don't know if he rushes
Yeah, yeah,
necessarily
yeah,
because
yeah.
he's
Not
pretty
yet.
freaked out, but he calls out hello, calls out for his mom, and that's when he kind of hears a little bit of crackling and looks down and sees his charred father.
Yep, yep,
And
yep. The burnt,
as
fully burnt
you're
corpses.
looking up from the father into his face, the camera is panning upward, and you see Annie up in the corner of the ceiling again, doing this, the Spider Annie thing.
Yep.
And he starts to turn around and sees
Is
the
that
naked cult
same?
member
Yep,
from the
yep, yep.
funeral,
This,
the guy
yep,
with the
the same.
bleach
Yep,
blonde hair,
yeah, same guy, and his
sees
and
him
his
in the.
perfect white smile, like this
Mhm.
grin that glows in the dark.
So as he's distracted and turned around looking at this guy, you hear the thunk because while he was distracted,
And he
Annie
drops
crawled
down,
across the ceiling and dropped
drop,
down into that corner and comes bursting out of the shadows.
and that is, and we go from one of the most tense builds towards absolutely all-time greatest jump scares. Like I fucking like at
And
this
it's not
point
even
in
really punctuated with the sound or music necessarily,
and just
but
like you
it's the
just
the
see her
visual of it.
emerge because you are there right there with him in that moment, and you just get her like rushing towards him, chasing him back up the
Up the
stairs,
stairs
and
and up the ladder into the attic. And
where the ladder that goes up into the attic has already been laid for him to go up, and it's
mm-hmm.
and then you get oh God, yeah, but basically oh, you continue with the description because I'm losing it
Well,
in just
he
reliving
nearly
it.
eats
So good.
shit before he makes it to the ladder, but
Yeah,
he
yeah,
kind of
yeah.
stumbles, and so
Yeah,
does she.
yep,
And
yep, yep.
if he's lucky that she did, because otherwise he would have been toast. But he makes it up the ladder. He the barrel bolt. He slides to lock it from the inside, and he's just screaming out that he's sorry, he's sorry, he's sorry. And you hear this thudding from the other side, this constant pounding, and
this is
then
this was a trailer shot, but I forgot about it when I was
yeah,
watching the film because of course I would. And you cut to Annie on the ceiling at the trapdoor, banging her head inside, like to try and get in. And it is so because you hear the knocking first, and it just brought me right back to another knocking sound in a different horror film altogether, which was one of the first I actually ever watched, but didn't finish until years later. And it is a different tone and different mood because but where a sound fills you with this sense of like pure fear, or at least tension and unease or whatever. Just everything we love about horror. In The Shining, before you see a certain visual, you hear this rhythmic boom 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 boom. And it's not even a scary moment in The Shining, but it's just the sound of Jack Torrance
tennis
knocking,
ball,
throwing a tennis ball against a wall, but it is done in such a way that it is like sound is horror's greatest sort of like asset, and it's not respected to the degree it is nearly or at least by I think a lot of people. It's like, oh, I want to see like gore and that's a part of it, but yeah, this is a moment in Hereditary where completely the sound design. I actually physically remember like basically jumping, like leaving my seat, like going up, like because of the cut to her on the ceiling following that knocking, and it's like, and I had seen that in the cinema, like already technically, but it was just it's yeah. Once the pieces are in place, there's nothing like it.
Yeah, it's something, all right. She's got some superpowers now from Payman. So he backs away from the trap door there, and he sees all these lit candles and all this
He's seeing the
shit.
scene. Yeah.
Yep. And okay, grandma's no longer there, but in the space previously occupied by her body, he finds a
He's
photo of him with his eyes basically scratched out or
Yep.
punched out of the photo or
Mm-hmm.
something. It's very roughly done. And oh God, he's freaking out like you do in this type of scenario, and he turns after he hears this little sound to find his mother floating in the air and sawing off her own head with
Using
a
the piano
wire.
wire. Yep, and I
While
completely missed that.
yeah,
Like, yeah, that's so good.
and
Well,
she's
I didn't miss her sawing her head off, but I missed that it was wire from the piano. Yeah,
yep.
it's like,
And as he's witnessing this
so
horrific event, he notices 3 more cult members naked standing in the corner, and he gets a little wave from one of them
yeah,
because they're all smiles.
and
And at
he's
this
so
point,
freaked out by it, he just fucking has to get out. He
yep,
bolts.
yep, yeah. Understandably, he dives through the window and crashes to the ground
Yeah.
below. And
as the head
yeah,
of
she's going
turning
faster
left,
and faster.
faster. And we
And
hear it
then
drop.
you don't you don't see the head come off,
Yeah.
but you do hear the drop, and then you see the shadow of her floating headless corpse go over him, and then there's another payment shimmer that
Yeah,
finds its way to him, settles
finally
on his
finds the
back.
host that it needs, and it is confirmed for us when he stands up, and we just get this one shot of him, and we get the cluck, we get the tick, and
Yes. Ugh. And he looks up and he sees her headless corpse floating up the treehouse ladder. And he walks by, unfortunately, the corpse of their dog. They
yeah.
need to
The
fucking
dog,
kill the dog. I hate when they kill the dog.
but they don't make a big deal out of it. But it's just like,
Thank
yep,
God.
the entire family is gone. Like, yeah, we're getting animal sacrifice in here too, people. Like, we're giving Payman everything he wants and more. And yeah,
So,
we
Payman ascends. He
indeed.
climbs the ladder and finds inside the treehouse Charlie's head crowned atop a mannequin with Payman's sigil, and then Ellen and Annie's headless corpses bowing before it.
Yeah, because
And
we did actually you do get the full visual, I think, of both the corpses floating up, don't you, at one point? Or am I
I think it
misremembering?
was just
Yeah,
Annie's.
yeah, yeah. It's just Annie's. Yeah, because oh yeah, of course, yeah, just Annie's. Because yeah, of course, Granny's already up there.
Yeah, along with the rest of the cult, who are all bowed before Charlie's head on this mannequin, and Joan gets up, picks up the crown, places it on top of Peter. Now fully Charlie Payman. She even makes reference of Charlie now being inside his body, and it's quite the speech about Payman being one of the kings of hell, and she goes on a bit, but it's ending with hail Payman, very similar to hail Satan, the year is one from Rosemary's Baby.
Yeah,
And
but also it is a instead of a doomed ending, a dour ending, it is the music that plays, the organ style element of the score,
well,
is
and also they cut out to this basically taking place in a diorama of the
yeah,
treehouse,
hmm
and then credits and Joni Mitchell.
yeah,
Uh,
exactly, it's absolutely it's perfect because upon first viewing, you're like, well, that's a very weird ending. What the fuck did I just watch? But when you go back, it's actually like, oh yeah, this is because the cult. This is what they wanted.
yep.
It's a happy ending
For
for
somebody, yeah.
Payment and for the untold riches therein that they'll get. And
And I
it
suppose for Charlie, I guess.
but
I think Charlie's still a little confused as to what's going on. I mean, Charlie, for all intents and purposes, could have been Payman from the start.
yeah,
In some
you
ways,
it just yeah,
yeah.
that's the nice thing about that. The one of the best things about Hereditary is that actually these different viewings of it is so open to interpretation, and that was clearly intended that you can view this almost purely as a as I talked about, as almost a treatise on mental illness. That's something that still resonates with me for it. Dealing with interpersonal family struggles, that is then kind of it's realized through vivid nightmare imagery and disassociation and but then brutal, honest, real conversational scenes, the dinner table, and then but just about how actually mental illness can truly tear a family apart
Yep.
and kill everything about it. Like that's one way to view it, or you can have this as purely one of the best demonic possession, ritualistic movies that's ever been made, because
Absolutely.
it takes that genre and grounds it in a way, but still gives you the very best of it without positioning it from it is what the best parts about it are, what you don't see almost, but what you see is so well performed and it intricately executed to a point that means that when I was thinking about this before the show, and we had a conversation about it. I was like, are we gonna rehash the whole plot? Are we gonna do the thing where like I'm engaged? I could just sit and tell someone who didn't know and they would hate it, the whole story of this film, because actually, if the past 2 hours of show haven't convinced you, like it's just you don't need to be, because it is just, and it's not going to be for everyone, and that's one
Oh
of the things,
God, no.
like
And
so many
film
people
shouldn't
that
be.
Yeah, I know. So many people you might have paused it earlier, watched Hereditary, and be like, why are these guys so high on this fucking movie? But it's like, it's because it is a true work of art and vision that, you know, God bless A24, right? The fact that they enable and are able to give artists it, and it really, some people call it elevated horror, art house horror,
I'm
but
not a super fan
no,
of
no, no,
those
no, no,
terms,
no, no, no.
but I understand where they're
No,
coming from.
but to me, like this comes from the same school as directors like Sam Raimi, Dario Argento, not because it is similar in tone or execution, but because it is a pure, completely, shocking in a lot of ways. Like it gives you something you do not get anywhere else. Like Evil Dead 2, Suspiria, Hereditary. Like
This is this director's vision,
yeah, 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 and
without
that's
question.
yeah, without question, it is complete. And every person who is involved in it, there's dozens upon dozens upon dozens of people as those credits roll, and it's
Mhm.
like every one of them needs to be appreciated because they made this happen, and and all of these are like yeah, influenced by real life, and come from a real place, but it's like these are original visions, and I well, thanks for letting me gush about it, man. Because
Yeah,
it's like, yeah, you kind of, yeah.
that's
There's,
kind of the point of this whole thing. So
yeah. It's just so fucking great.
yeah,
I know, and it really did, and it just set me on. If I wasn't on that path or starting to be already, it was just like, oh my god, how many more horror films can I see? And it is for me, Hereditary is the bar against which everything else is measured. It's not fair to do so because you
it,
don't get it. You don't
yeah.
you don't get it every time. But it's like it's always going to be there as it. It's like this is my favorite horror film of all time. Among a crowd of absolutely fantastic pictures, but it still stands and
Oh,
will. I think
I
I think
think this is very much in a top five for me for sure because
mm,
I can never be definitive enough in my favorites of whatever to just
sure.
say yes, this one specific film is my favorite. But yeah, it's for me it is there with The Shining. It is there with The Silence of the Lambs. It's in those upper echelons and always will be, obviously. One thing that I did want to discuss that I
Oh, do
almost
it.
forgot, Disappointment Boulevard. We're supposed to get that this year, right?
Yeah,
That's
no,
the
this is yeah. This episode will be releasing ahead of the third film, which I have just found out is apparently going to be more of like a horror comedy. Apparently, and so I love. First of all, I love the name Disappointment Boulevard. That's a great title because for a lot of people, after Hereditary, Midsummer was something of a disappointment. Not for me, but I think it is a difficult second film for Ari Aster.
hmm,
Again, an unassailable lead performance from
Florence Pugh.
an
Yeah,
actress. Florence Pugh is incredible in it, and holy shit, if Hereditary gives you the unsettling 40 minutes in, where the fuck is this going? Midsummer just puts it right up front. I'm not going to get into Midsummer because that's a future episode for you to discuss with someone. Maybe I'll come back for it. But I absolutely, I was, yeah, I am so, I don't, you know what? This is the thing. I have got the perfect horror film in my mind from Ari Aster. He can do whatever the fuck he wants next, and I am there day one release. Like I'm buying a ticket for whatever he does next because,
absolutely.
especially in terms of modern horror directors and visionaries, it's like it's him, it's Jordan Peele. Like they're and there's other many others, but Karen Kusama, like right there, like up there, and it's Hereditary is so fucking good.
Yes. May I also recommend Brian Bertino because if you like Bleak, the Dark and the Wicked, ooh, it is it's something.
Oh wait, hold on.
He's the director of The Strangers. And
Oh, The Dark and the Wicked. I didn't know that one. I've not seen that.
he is another outstanding modern horror director.
Most certainly.
And Mike Flanagan. Let's not beat around the bush there.
Holy shit! Yes, Mike Flanagan. Yeah, especially when it comes to like the for fans. Yeah, Hereditary is for fans of The Haunting of Hill House, The Haunting of Bly Manor, Midnight Mass, in a lot of ways, because it deals all of those deal with intense family relationships as well. Yeah, so I believe, at least in the UK and Europe, Hereditary has been on Netflix for some time. So if you're listening to it from there, let me just show you. Yep, both Hereditary and Midsommar are on Netflix over here. So definitely, you can't you are in for an experience, and even if you don't like it, you're not gonna have ever watched anything like it, in my mind at least. And I'm someone who is still educating himself about horror in a lot of ways. Like I've not seen there's films that you will cover on this show where I'll be like, oh sorry, I ain't seen it. Yeah, it's on the list though. Like some classics, but.
Yeah, I feel like I'm constantly seeing stuff that I unfortunately I have missed. It's I've been around for quite some time, but
anyone who ever decries and is like, how can you have not seen X, or well not the film X that recently came out, which is awesome.
Yeah, I still need to see that, by the way. But I know, I can't wait. I can't wait.
Yeah, but yeah, don't gatekeep, especially if it comes to film, pop culture. Don't be a gatekeeper, and just enjoy.
And that's something that I've made a big point of on this show. I am not doing this in any way to shit on a particular horror film. I am doing this to, lift up somebody's love of a particular film.
Yes.
Because you know what? Don't yunk somebody else's yum at the end of the day.
And also, it's a goddamn miracle that anything gets taken from idea to page to screen, because
even the shittiest film ever, I sincerely doubt that many people strike out to make a bad film.
No one is trying to make a bad film. It's just
unless it's explicitly stated in the film itself.
I have made of varying lengths. I've never made anything feature length, but like I've made short films, I've made even shorter YouTube videos over the past decade, and even a little bit before that. And it's like, if I look at one of the first little films I've made, it is not good. But that's because it's like the only way to get good is get better at it, and also these things take to do it right is an art, a true art, and it's
absolutely
fantastic. And yeah, just basically watch Hereditary. That's all you need to do.
I think those are some good final thoughts on the film. Joe, if you'd like, where can people find you?
Oh, yes. You can find me at Joe Medforce on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok. Of course, if you want little bite-sized thoughts and videos and photos and things. And then I stream pretty much every week, at least once a week, on twitch.tv/Joe Medforce. And if you miss those and you want to see me, loving Nintendo but basically doing whatever the hell I damn well please, go to youtube.com/Joe Medforce. And I would implore you to follow me on at least one of those platforms, because this year I will be. I mean, everyone's got something they're working on. I'm doing a show with a very close friend of mine that I can't necessarily tell you all about yet, but it is very much in the vein of lifting up what we love, just in a more broad sense of the word. So, definitely.
Well, that sounds awesome.
Yeah, it costs nothing to hit that follow button, and do the same, of course, with Mr. Joe Mertens. Hit the subscribe button for Murders with Mertens.
That's
just you know what? Straight up murder that bloody subscribe button.
Hell yeah!
Hit that like and share the videos with your friends, so I'll come for you in the same way that freaking Torrance did in The Shining.
That's right. That's right. We are threatening with subscriptions here. Yes, that is. because this, it's largely a hobby at this point, but that is like my minor goal with this. Hopefully by the end of the year, I'll
Get
have
that
hit
custom
at
URL.
least 100 subscribers so that I can at least get the custom URL. Yes,
That's it.
absolutely.
There's nothing wrong with that. And
That's a nice little step. And of course, to just improve as this goes along. This has been tons of fun.
Thank you so much again for having me on, man. It's been
Absolutely.
amazing.
It's been an absolute pleasure. I'd love to have you back on a future episode.
Oh, always,
This
man.
is super fun. But this has been Murders with Mertens, a horror film podcast. Thank you for letting us tickle your ear holes. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe and all that. I'll be back soon enough with another episode. But until next time, stay spooky, everyone.